The wind roars, the lights die. We are strangers shivering in the dark, forced to share our warmth. Jessica Peterson's Duke gave me hope, helped me make better life decisions, and improved my relationships. Watch my summary and definitely read this book.
The room is pitch black. I mean, total suffocating absence of light. We aren't just talking about a power outage.
No, it's a sensory deprivation chamber.
Right. Outside, the wind isn't just blowing, it is screaming against the side of this luxury mansion in Aspen. You have a blizzard that has dumped 4 feet of snow, and the roof overhead is literally groaning under the weight.
And that sound, it mimics a living thing in pain. It's a structural fatigue that you can actually feel in your teeth.
Yeah, and the steel window frames are rattling so violently they sound like gunfire or like someone is actively trying to break in.
Which is the trigger. Inside this freezing multi-million-dollar glass box, the temperature is just plummeting. And you have 2 people trapped in what is essentially a high-end refrigerator.
Wheeler Rankin.
Yes, a terrified, self-proclaimed indoor girl whose nervous system is currently flooded with cortisol, because the noise of the storm is triggering a very specific, very deep-seated childhood trauma.
And the other person in this pitch black room is Duke Rivers.
A cowboy who is currently, and quite pragmatically, naked.
It is the ultimate pressure cooker. But we aren't here to just recount a spicy scene from a romance novel. We are doing a deep dive into Jessica Peterson's text, Duke. And our mission today is to dissect the physiology of safety.
Because Duke, this man who is usually all jokes and easy flirtation, he makes a command decision here. He realizes that hypothermia doesn't care about propriety. He tells her, we need to preserve body heat.
And he tucks her into bed with him.
Which is, if we're being purely clinical, a survival tactic. It's thermal regulation. But in the context of this deep dive, this moment is the catalyst for a total psychological dismantling.
Exactly. This isn't just, oh, we're cold, let's cuddle. This is the exact moment where the external chaos of the storm forces an internal surrender. Wheeler has spent her entire life building walls, emotional walls, career walls, literal walls around her heart to keep out the chaos of her family.
And nature just laughs at those walls.
Right. She is shaking so hard her teeth are chattering. And it's not just from the cold. It's a full-blown PTSD response to the noise, which reminds her of her screaming father.
And in that void, Duke becomes the only solid thing in the universe.
I want to focus immediately on that transition. The shift from primal fear, the lizard brain reacting to a physical threat, to what the text describes as a cataclysmic release of tension through intimacy.
It's a fascinating philosophical pivot. Peterson is suggesting that safety isn't just the absence of danger, it's the presence of a grounding force. Duke doesn't just warm her up physically. He anchors her while the world literally tries to blow the house down.
And that is the core of what we're unpacking today. The philosophy of safety, the trauma of the good girl, and the archetype of the small-town cowboy as the antidote to modern urban isolation. We have a massive stack of sources to get through. The text itself, character breakdowns, psychological profiles on avoidant attachment.
And we need to answer a central provocative question for you, the listener. In a world of infinite choice, of restless wanderlust, is the ultimate act of rebellion actually choosing to stay? Is the cowboy the ultimate traditionalist, or is he the only true rebel left?
Let's start with the man himself, Duke Rivers. We have to deconstruct this small-town cowboy archetype, because Peterson gives us some incredibly specific, tactile details that tell us this isn't just a costume.
Right. It's very easy to slap a hat on a character and call him a cowboy. But look at the text. Look at the description of his hands. Wheeler specifically notes that Duke's palm is, and I quote, dry, smooth in the center, but rough at the base of his fingers and thumb.
That detail, rough at the base, it stuck with me for days.
It's vital because it signals labor. It signals that this man uses tools, ropes, reins. He works with friction.
Yeah.
For Wheeler, who comes from the world of Dallas country clubs, corporate lawyers, smooth, manicured hands, that texture is a shock to the system. It signals authenticity. It tells you that this man is grounded in the physical reality of the world, not the theoretical, not the corporate.
And here's where I want to push back on the simple cowboy trope. I think Duke is actually rebel. I'm going to argue that he is the black sheep of the Rivers family, not because he's bad, but because he's restless.
You think he's a rebel?
I do. He tells Wheeler at the Rattler bar, I hate the idea of getting stuck here forever. He wants to travel. He wants to leave Hartsville. He jumps at the chance to drive a U-Haul 20 hours to Aspen just to get out of town. He is suffocating in that small town role.
See, I have to completely disagree with you there. I think that restlessness is performative, or at least it's a misidentified hunger. I would argue Duke is the ultimate traditionalist.
How so?
Look at his actions, not just his complaints. He enforces manners. He protects women. He loves his family unconditionally. He's constantly managing his brothers, diffusing tension. And ultimately, where does he find his freedom? He finds it by settling down. I think his rebellion is just a common trope in the Western genre. The cowboy who looks at the horizon and thinks he wants to ride off, but his function, his mythological purpose is to protect the hearth.
But isn't there a huge difference between the restlessness we see in, say, a Hemingway protagonist and what Duke has?
Expand on that.
Hemingway's characters are usually running away from something. Existential dread, the war, themselves. They drink to forget. Duke seems to be running towards something. He's intensely curious. He asks Wheeler all these questions. He wants to know about her business. He's not cynical. He's hungry for experience.
That is a fair distinction. Hemingway's restlessness is usually nihilistic. It's about the void. Duke's restlessness is generative. He wants to expand. But notice how he expands. He doesn't expand by leaving the family unit. He expands by bringing Wheeler into it.
Which brings us to the Rivers family dynamic, this found family aspect. The text heavily features the Lucks, the Powells, the brothers. It's a triad.
It is. And it contrasts so sharply with the Lone Ranger myth. These cowboys aren't solitary. They are hypercommunal. There is a scene that perfectly encapsulates this, the furnishing of the cottage. Duke calls in the cavalry because the house is empty.
Yes, Ryder shows up with a truck. Wyatt and Sally went all the way to Austin for a bed frame. Patsy brings the comforter.
And the result is this mismatched, chaotic collection of furniture. It's not curated. It's not interior design. But Wheeler walks in and she feels home.
Contrast that with the sterile perfection of her wealthy upbringing in Dallas, where everything matched perfectly, everything was wildly expensive, and everyone was completely miserable.
The mismatch represents the messiness of communal love. It's imperfect, but it's warm. It functions.
It's the difference between a house and a home. And that brings us to the atmospheric clash of the entire deep dive. We have a massive study in juxtaposition here, Dallas versus Hartsville.
It is the classic city mouse, country mouse setup, but Peterson loads it with very specific sensory triggers. Dallas is represented by smog-choked traffic. It's the judgmental country club parents, Tim and Preston. It's the constant pressure of making it. It's purely anxiety.
And Hartsville, the ranch, is bluebonnet fields. It's mud-splattered convoys. It's the visceral scent of sweat and clean air. It's grounded.
But the absolute most telling artifact of Wheeler's Dallas life is that doormat.
The doormat. Everyone welcome except Jolene.
It's such an incredibly specific prop. On the surface, it's just a joke. It's a reference to the Dolly Parton song, obviously. It signals to the reader that Wheeler has a sense of humor. But if you peel it back, what does that mat actually say?
It says she's territorial.
Exactly. It says, I am guarding my territory. It says, I am afraid of being taken from. It's a boundary set in humor because she's fundamentally too afraid to set real boundaries in reality.
And Dukes just walks right over it. He invades that curated safe space. But let's go back to the transition between these two worlds, the U-Haul Odyssey. I love that Peterson puts them in a U-Haul truck for a 20-hour drive. It's the most unsexy vehicle imaginable.
It strips away all the pretense. You cannot be glamorous in a U-Haul. You're bouncing around. The suspension is terrible. It's loud. It forces extreme proximity. And look at the culinary markers of that trip.
The gas station wine, boxed wine, and pimento cheese crackers. It's high-low culture mixing. Wheeler is a CEO, essentially, or co-CEO. She comes from serious Dallas money. But here she is drinking boxed wine in a rented truck. It bridges their worlds. It brings her down to earth and lifts him up to her intellectual level because they're forced to just be two people talking.
And then we finally get to Aspen. And right before that basement scene we started with, we get the Viking hoist. Duke literally picks her up and throws her over his shoulder.
We have to analyze the mechanics of that move. It's not just a caveman alpha male trope. Wheeler specifically describes it as surrendering control. She says, surrendering control to someone physically capable of bearing her weight, literally and metaphorically.
That is the psychological key to her character.
Yes. Wheeler has been carrying the weight of her entire business, her parents' endless disappointment, her own internal shame. She is fundamentally exhausted from carrying her own weight. Duke picking her up is a physical manifestation of what he offers emotionally. I can carry you.
It's the profound relief of suspension.
Yeah.
For a moment, she doesn't have to hold herself up. Precisely. It allows her to be the passenger in her own life. Just for a moment.
Okay, let's pivot to the central thesis of the book, the long game. This is introduced way back in the first chapter at the Rattler Bar with the dartboard metaphor.
This is a brilliant structural device. You have two games of darts being discussed, 301 and 501.
Explain the difference for you listening who, like me, maybe only plays darts once a year at a dive bar.
In 301, you start with fewer points to sprint. It's a very quick game. In 501, you start with more. It takes significantly longer. You have to strategize. You have to pace yourself. You cannot just rely on a lucky throw.
And Duke reads her immediately. First meeting, he says, 501 is your jam because you play the long game.
He nails her professional personality.
Yeah.
But here is the massive irony. Wheeler thinks she wants to play 301 in her relationships. She tells herself she just wants a hookup, a quick win, a one-night stand.
Why?
Because a quick win completely avoids the risk of a long loss. If you play the long game like her parents tried to do with their toxic marriage, you risk a devastating, drawn-out failure.
She wants the hit of intimacy without the legacy of pain.
Correct. But Duke is playing 501 with her from the absolute moment he sees her. He's looking at legacy. He talks about the ranch, the family history. He isn't interested in the quick win. He wants the slow burn. He wants to chip away at her defenses point by point until he gets to zero.
And that metaphor just bleeds into everything in the text. The business Bellamy Brooks is a long game. It's taken them years to get any traction. The ranch restoration for the Rivers family, that's a generational long game.
It frames the entire narrative structure. The main conflict is Wheeler trying to force a 301 game into a 501 reality.
Which brings us to the major plot twist. The pivot that forces the game to change permanently. The pregnancy trope.
Yes. The accidental pregnancy.
I can hear the extreme skepticism in your voice.
I am a skeptic. I have to be. From a strict literary criticism standpoint, the birth control failed trope, often feels like a massive deus ex machina.
You think it's lazy?
I think it is a very convenient plot device used to force two characters together who would otherwise naturally drift apart. Wheeler goes back to Dallas. Duke stays at the ranch. End of story. The pregnancy forces proximity. It's artificial friction. Do we really buy the missed pill and the sudden onset of sickness?
I'm going to vigorously defend it. I don't think it's lazy at all. I think it's the only thing strong enough to break Wheeler's avoidance.
Go on. Make the case for it.
Wheeler is a master of running away. She has avoidant attachment written all over her psychology. We know she ghosts him. She ignores his calls. If she wasn't pregnant, she would have successfully pushed him away forever. She would have convinced herself the Aspen basement was just a trauma-bonded fling. The biology, the unavoidable physical reality of the baby is the checkmate. It completely removes her ability to run. It forces her to face the long game.
That is a compelling defense. It acts as a secondary pressure cooker, much like the blizzard in Aspen did physically. It removes the modern option of ghosting.
Exactly, and it leads to a completely different kind of intimacy. I want to talk about the morning sickness. Wheeler isn't just glowing and pregnant. She is miserable. She is vomiting peppermint tea. She is a total mess.
And that is crucial. The romance genre very often glosses over the visceral reality of the human body. Here, we see Duke actively holding her hair. We see him cleaning the toilet.
Is there anything more deeply intimate than that?
I would argue that Act holding her hair while she retches into a bowl is far more intimate than the sex in the Aspen basement. Sex can be incredibly performative. Sex can actually be a way to hide. You cannot hide when you are vomiting. You are completely stripped of dignity and totally vulnerable. And Duke doesn't flinch. He doesn't look away in disgust. He steps into the mess. That is where the relationship actually begins, not in the bed, but in the bathroom.
It totally redefines romance. Romance isn't candles and roses, it's holding the bucket.
And let's look at the psychology behind why Wheeler struggles so hard to accept that level of care. We really need to do a deep tangent here on avoiding attachment, specifically in children of high conflict divorce.
Wheeler's parents, Tim and Franny, they are a piece of work.
They are the absolute source code for her trauma. When you grow up in a house where love is conditional or where the screamer, the father figure, makes the environment perpetually unsafe, you learn that consistency is a trap.
Right.
If things are calm in that house, it just means the storm is gathering energy. So when Duke is consistent, when he is kind, when he's quote-unquote too good to be true, Wheeler doesn't feel safe. She feels intense anxiety. Her nervous system is just waiting for the axe to fall.
She interprets his stability as a prelude to a massive blow-up.
Exactly. She cannot process a man who says what he means and does what he says. It feels completely alien and dangerous to her nervous system.
Which leads us perfectly into the deepest part of her character psychology. Wheeler versus the world, and specifically the pizza face trauma.
This broke my heart to analyze.
Wheeler is a highly successful CEO. She's objectively beautiful, she's incredibly smart, but inside her own head, she is still the weird teenager. She literally calls herself the shame of the family.
She has deeply internalized her brother Preston's bullying. Pizza face. It's a crude adolescent insult, but it stuck. It became her core identity. She sees herself as the defect, the one who doesn't fit the pristine Dallas Country Club mold.
Now contrast that internal monologue with how Duke sees her. He doesn't see a defect. He calls her blue, he calls her cowgirl, he calls her brave.
He is systematically rewriting her self-perception. But to do that permanently, he has to fight her father. We have to thoroughly analyze the can of whoop-ass dinner scene.
Oh, this is the climax of the book for me. Wheeler's parents come to the ranch. The atmosphere is thick with tension. The dad, Tim, is doing his usual passive-aggressive, high-volume dominance routine. Preston is being a smug jerk.
And Duke just cuts it off.
He doesn't just cut it off. He surgically removes their power from the room.
The dialogue line is the key. Tim tries to dismiss Duke. He calls him a stranger. And Duke fires back, "I'm her best friend."
And then he tells the dad, essentially, if you speak to her like that again, we have a physical problem.
It's the confrontation Wheeler has needed her entire life, but could never execute on her own. But what's truly fascinating is the best friend assertion. He validates their relationship not just on sexual grounds, or even biological grounds with the baby, but on foundational emotional grounds. He is claiming his place in the hierarchy of her life. He is actively displacing the father. He is saying, "I am the protector now. Your reign of terror over her self-esteem is officially over."
It is deeply, deeply satisfying to read, but before we get too bogged down in the heavy trauma, we have to talk about the cultural history of the Wrangler butt.
We must. It's practically a supporting character in itself.
Because Wheeler, she objectifies him quite a bit. She is completely obsessed with his ass in those jeans.
It is the female gaze turned entirely on the cowboy archetype.
Sure.
But sociologically, the Wrangler butt is an American icon.
Hmm?
It represents functional masculinity. Those jeans aren't tight for modern fashion reasons. They're tight so the fabric doesn't get caught in heavy machinery or saddle gear.
Mm-hmm.
They represent durability.
Right.
Wheeler, coming from a world of soft, boat shoe-wearing men like her brother and her father, finds that literal durability incredibly arousing. It's sexual, yes, but it's also about capacity. That body can do actual work. That body can endure hardship.
It connects directly back to the shirtless ad campaign plot point for Bellamy Brooks. Wheeler knows that sex sells, obviously, but she also knows that authenticity sells even better. Duke isn't a male model pretending to be rugged. He's the real deal.
Which brings us perfectly to the business integration. We are entering the final stretch of this deep dive here, the final verdict.
The epilogue gives us the happily ever after. We get a 5-year time jump. Twins, a wildly successful business. Duke is a full partner in Bellamy Brooks.
I have to ask you the hard question. Is it earned or is it pure fantasy? Because a 5-year jump is a massive leap, and twins and a thriving business feels very, very neat. Does it ignore the grit we saw earlier?
I firmly believe it's earned, and I'll tell you exactly why. Because they did the brutal work during the pregnancy. They didn't just skip the hard parts to get to the happy ending. They navigated the devastating parental fallout. They navigated the physical sickness. They navigated the extreme awkwardness of living together before actually dating. They built the friendship, the 501 foundation, before the romance, fully solidified into a permanent structure.
I am actually inclined to agree with you, primarily because of the business integration. Duke joining the boot company is a brilliant narrative resolution to his restless wanderlust.
Yes, he doesn't have to leave Wheeler to see the world. He builds a new world with her.
He finds his travel, his new experiences, his expansion through the lens of their shared enterprise. He becomes a partner in the truest sense of the word. He isn't just the loyal husband staying on the ranch. He is the co-creator of their legacy. The long game wasn't just about winning the relationship. It was about building something that actually lasts.
The final image of the book is them at a frozen custard shop with the kids. It's chaotic. The children are fighting over a stuffed whale. It's noisy and messy.
And it contrasts so perfectly with the lonely, sterile perfection of Wheeler's childhood. Her parents had the perfect house, the perfect designer clothes, the perfect public image. And behind closed doors, they are miserable. Duke and Wheeler have a messy house, mismatched furniture, sticky hands, and constant noise. but they have genuine joy.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? What is the final takeaway?
It brings us all the way back to that initial question of rebellion.
Right. Because we live in a Tinder world, a swipe left world, a culture where you can always find something theoretically better or newer just around the corner.
Duke Rivers had every reason to run. He had the built-in restless wanderlust. Wheeler had every psychological reason to run. She had the trauma and the deeply ingrained fear of commitment. But the ultimate act of rebellion for both of them wasn't leaving. It was staying.
It was choosing to play the 501 game.
Exactly. In a modern culture of 301s, of quick wins, instant dopamine hits, and endless romantic options, choosing to play the 501, to commit to chipping away at the points day after day, year after year, until you build a lasting legacy that is the most radical thing you can possibly do.
The long game isn't the boring option. It's the incredibly brave option.
It's the only option that actually wins in the end.
And on that profound note, we're going to leave you to think about your own dartboard. Are you playing for the quick win, or are you doing the hard work of building something that lasts? This has been the deep dive on Jessica Peterson's Duke.
It's been a pleasure to unpack it with you all. See you next time.
Stay warm out there.